He's retired from the Montgomery County, Maryland Police Department. He was a police officer before that in Baltimore City, Maryland. While working at 9/11, he developed lung cancer. But that is not what ended his career. He's heard about the violence, the trauma, and the injuries that put an end to his police career. Welcome to the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. In the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, we are joined by special guests talking about their experiences, the realities of investigating crimes, plus those who have experienced horrendous trauma. Police, first responders, military, and victims of crime share their stories. Hi, I'm John J. Wiley. In addition to being a broadcaster, I'm also a retired police sergeant. Be sure to check out our website, letradio.com, and also like us on Facebook. Search for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. The Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show is brought to you in part by Newsbreak. In particular, our profile on Newsbreak, the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. You can do a Google search. Just search for Law Enforcement Talk Newsbreak, and you'll get access to it. You can download the app for free, the Newsbreak app. Just go to your app store of your choosing and download it. Be sure to look for Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and Podcast and follow us. You'll get great news, great articles, local news, and much more, all on the Newsbreak app, which is 100% free. So download it today. And be sure to follow the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and Podcast and let a friend know. Share the post. Hey, there's an idea. Share it on your social media. And tell everybody about the Newsbreak app, in particular, Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and Podcast on the Newsbreak app. Remember, it's free. Contact is from the great state of New York, Long Island. We have Thomas Carchidi on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Thomas is a retired police officer, which we'll go into in a moment. He is author of the book, A Life in Law Enforcement, a police memoir, the good, the bad, and the corrupt. And we share an agency together. I'm retired from the Baltimore City Police Department in February of 1992. And you started there, was it in 2001?
2002, yes.
2002. So we do share a little common history. I worked in the Central for a while, Sector 3. And when I was acting lieutenant, I had the block. That was my purview, and that was not a fun position, which we'll talk about in a few moments. First of all, you're a New York guy. And how do you go from New York, and I know the answer to this, but how do you go from New York to Baltimore to Montgomery County?
So basically, I was sitting around. I finished college. I finished graduate school, and I had a ton of loans to pay back for school. And I was waiting forever to get back on, get onto the police department over here. And it's a little different over here. It's a lot of who you know and a ton of politics. And, it's very hard to get into the county police department. So I knew somebody over there in Maryland. And I took the 3-day processing back then for out-of-state people. It was a 3-day processing. I went down and literally, I think they a place like Baltimore, they're so desperate for people in the sense that there's so much going on,
yeah.
And they need good people. They need them. And I think they literally did my everything, my background, the entire process in like 2-3 months. And they called me. They're like, listen, you're good to go. You've never been arrested. You have a clean record. You could start on such and such a date as a pre-hire. So that was it. All I ever wanted to do at that point was work in law enforcement. And I remember when I got that call from the background investigator. What a nice woman. Oh, my gosh, one of the nicest women, nicest police officers, people I've ever met.
Yeah.
Very different experience. I talk about that in my book. Very different experience with her. We had a good relationship. She wasn't like a salty old, investigator.
She's not like me. That's what you're saying. That's a nice way of saying she's not burned and abused and violated and just salty.
Mr. Wiley, she was just a good person. And,
if you look in the photos of salty police sergeants, you'll probably see my photo. And I've gotten a lot better with age, but one of the things that when I got hired, and not to get away from your story, but I was turned down by St. Mary's County Sheriff's Department, Maryland State Police, all that stuff. I really wanted to go into police work, and I was driving for a union. And I was driving in Baltimore to the Union Hall, and I saw a billboard, I forget what it was, but Baltimore Police Department's hiring. So I applied, and I went through the thing, and it took I think maybe a week. And they're like, okay, you're hired. We can start you on October 6th, 1980, and you can work in construction repair until the academy starts. I'm like, okay. And then it hit me. Am I ready for this? Am I strong enough? Am I tough enough? Am I mentally tough enough? Did any of those questions come to your mind?
Always. And I'll tell you what, I got that message from her on my voicemail. I'll never forget it. And I was so excited to just go, leave New York. I had no fear at that point in your life. You know, when you're young, you feel invincible.
What did you say, 6 foot tall and bulletproof? Nothing's going to bother you?
No, actually, I was 6'3", probably 260 pounds, lifelong martial artist, bodybuilder. And you think that means something in a place like Baltimore City or, you know, New York City. And that means nothing, to be honest with you. But you think so. So I always did have that. Even with my positive mentality, I was always worried in the back of my mind that, oh, what if I fail? What if I don't make this? What if I don't do this?
Right.
Because there's always doubt as a human being. There's always doubt and there's always worry, especially people that are proud and strong. They want to succeed. And, you know, you said you got turned down from the police department. I as well did. And it's you know, there's nothing to be ashamed of. It's an honest truth.
Well, the reason why I got turned down, I'll be point blank honest with you. At the time, 1980, there was a big diversity push. Now, that's really, it's not new. It's a non-new concept. So I was not a military veteran. I was not a member of a racial minority. I was not female. So I had 3 strikes going against me, and I couldn't compete with the other people from MSP and St. Mary's County Sheriff's Department. I was not persona non grata. Not that I wasn't good enough. It's the outside didn't match what they needed. Right.
Well, when you say not good enough, that's the problem with law enforcement, and I get into all that as well. In my work, it's so arbitrary. What's good enough? So when I went into the police department, at that time I had a college degree, a master's degree. Like I said, I was a youth ministry counselor, a lifelong martial artist. Never arrested, never in a psychiatric facility. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying these are the things I never was. And I still got turned down because of the most ridiculous reason. And a lot of people run into this and they find that I actually got turned down because it's nuts. When I was 19 years old, I went to I was referred to go talk about relationship counseling. And because of that, I got kept off the job. And when you asked me how did I end up in Maryland, that's basically how. I said, this is ridiculous.
Well, they're hiring.
I have a spotless...
One thing I'll tell people all the time, if you want to be a police officer in the United States, go to the agencies that are hiring. Go to the ones that and the ones that are desperate. And by the way, I have great memories of Baltimore. I got a love-hate relationship with Baltimore. My biggest battles were with the agency itself, not with the street. Not with, in City Hall, they didn't do me any favors either. But that's another story for another day. What you do is you're going to learn everything from soup to nuts. You're going to handle it as a Baltimore City police officer, and you'll work with some of the best people on the planet. And and the great thing is that you can experience a lot and bring a lot to the table as well. Was that your experience?
My experience was this. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. We could talk for days and days. I'm a New York guy. I was born in Brooklyn. My parents are from Italy. I was born in Brooklyn. So definitely not sheltered. You know, I was a street kid, street guy, meaning in the sense not crime, always good. My parents wanted me to be on the straight and narrow, and I always promised them that. But, you know, I grew up organized crime in Brooklyn, and then I moved to Long Island. You know, I used to bounce to the clubs to make extra money on the weekend. Me and my friends were always out. So I could have very easily went in a different direction, but I didn't. I saw a lot of good and bad in law enforcement. Well,
let's take a break.
You know,
we're a short break. Sure. We're talking with Thomas Carchidi. He is a retired police officer from Montgomery County, Maryland. He worked at the Baltimore Police Department, Montgomery County Police Department, and he worked for Seagate in Brooklyn, New York as well. We return. He's the author of the book, A Life in Law Enforcement, a police memoir, the good, the bad, and the corrupt. Don't go anywhere. This is Law Enforcement Talk Radio show. We'll be right back.
Did you know that there are people earning $30,000 or more per month from Meta or Facebook? Did you know that you can too? All without breaking the time bank. Learn how to work smarter and not harder on Facebook. Get step-by-step instructions on what to do and what not to do. Start with a free membership. Get details at letbreak.com. letbreak.com. That's letbreak.com.
Here's your chance to get into the ground floor, to make a donation to make the movie Gun Runner, based off of the true story of now retired police detective Maria Oliveira, who shot 6 times while investigating a crime, died 3 times, brought back to life, was in a hospital for a month, rushed back to work, only to suffer a near-fatal heart attack, and then several months later, a near-fatal stroke. It talks about his recovery, his life after, and more. That's at gunrunnerfilm.com. Again, you can make a donation at gunrunnerfilm.com. Return our conversation with Thomas Carchidi. He is a retired Montgomery County, Maryland police officer. Also served in the Baltimore City Police Department. He's from New York originally, and he worked Seagate Police Department in New York as well. He's authored the book, A Life in Law Enforcement, a police memoir, The Good, the Bad, and the Corrupt. Before we went to a break, Thomas, we're talking a little bit about the old times. And granted, I'll say this, when I graduated from the academy, I did my field training in Baltimore in Bolton Hill, Central District. It was very sleepy. It was very nice. And then I got assigned to Northwest District of Baltimore. And the day I drove there, I was like, oh my goodness, what did I get myself into? And you quickly learned between Park Heights and Liberty Heights and Mondawmin, all that, you quickly learned the ways of streets. And then I got promoted to sergeant after working in the DEA for about 2 years and working Northwest District Narcotics with a guy we called Mad Dog, Blondie, Bulldog. We were quite the crew. But you learned a lot about policing. And by the way, I want to say this, and I say it all the time, the 90% of the time it was about quality of life issues that we serve for people, we solve for people. It wasn't about arresting people. And of those we arrested, the vast majority were okay folks. It was a small percentage that would ruin your day. But the ones that ruin your day, they were extremely violent.
Right. I agree.
And you went through some of that, didn't you?
Yes, sir. You see, and this isn't just hyperbole, this isn't macho talk, I'm not like that. It's not none of that. But a Baltimore City police officer, they see more really in a month than outside jurisdictions, a police officer in outside jurisdictions can see almost ever, It's true that in any jurisdiction, if you're upstate New York, if you're in Alaska, there's always crime, there's always craziness, and sometimes it's a little more dangerous because you have to wait a half hour for your backup. You're on your own. You're in the middle of the snow,
right.
in the mountains. But generally, the calls, the volume of calls, the amount of calls for service, the violent, dangerous calls you receive in Baltimore City on a day-to-day basis is, unprecedented. And I think you learn, if you want to learn how to be police or law enforcement, you go start in a place like Baltimore. You start in New York. You start in New York in the 70s and 80s.
Here's what I get from a lot of people, and I wonder if this happens to you. So they'll ask me, and number one, there's very few things I'll correct people on. When they say ex-police, I'm like, no. There's ex, there's former, and there's retired. I'm retired. Ex means you were pushed out under bad circumstances. You quit, or whatever it might be. I retired. But one of the things is, say, where'd you retire from? Baltimore. They go, oh, county or city? I go, city. And they go, is it like The Wire? Oh, my God, it's so bad. You get that?
I do get The Wire conversation all the time. And just, I love that show. I can't say enough about it. It's one of my top 2 shows of all time. Yes, a lot of that I found in the police department. A lot of what goes on in The Wire, yes.
Yeah. And even other law enforcement people will say to me, oh, my God, you survived that agency, that you survived. Baltimore, and I want to say this again, this is not a way of casting aspersions on other agencies or other cities or other counties, because bad things happen no matter where you're. But in Baltimore, it is a no-joke, violent city. It was in 1980, and it still is.
100%. There's no... Listen, I'm a New York guy, and when I was in Baltimore, I felt like I was in sometimes a third world country. When we were walking in the Eastern District, 15,000 abandoned homes, it doesn't seem real like that takes place in America, and people don't know about it. I live in Long Island, one of the most affluent places in America. Gorgeous, near the beach, $1 million homes are all over the place, and then you go out into the Hamptons, $50 million homes. So people don't realize what goes on in places like Detroit, in New York City, in Baltimore, and it's a completely different world.
It's a totally different world. And here's where I ran into a lot of problems, and we'll get into your story in a moment, is for me, when I was policing and I knew my job, I was really good at what I did. It's when it got quiet and I had to become a civilian again, and that's a term we use in the agency. It doesn't mean it's like military civilian, but when I became a civilian again, I didn't know how to act.
I can so understand what you're saying and feel what you're saying, because there's that transition, there's that learning period. If you see something happen, you're so used to acting. Like in martial arts, I've been training since I'm a child, and that's a whole other thing we could talk about, or, outlets for law enforcement or retired law enforcement. Martial arts, a big one. It's always been for me. I love teaching. But yeah, like that's huge, what you were just talking about. And, please continue on your thought on that, because I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
Well, here's what I realized, that number one, and as a saying I tell myself, and I can't take credit for this, my first wife did. She said, that was your job. It's not anymore. And there's a lot of people that desperately need a good throttling, but it's not your job. And you did your time, and you paid the price. And by the way, she reminds me that she paid a price, and my daughters paid a price as well. I didn't go through this by myself as much as I thought I did. So I was involved in lots of shootings, lots of violence, I tell people 4 shootings. I never fired a shot in the first 2. The last 2 were different affairs. I've been treated for smoke inhalation twice. I got stabbed by a drunk in a fight. I've been in more times than I can remember, and car accidents I can remember. And that was just as a Baltimore police. And that was in a little more than 10 years.
Right. There's definitely an adjusting period, but I think it gets easier, at least for me, as I get older. I retired early due to an injury. I was involved in a vehicle accident going to an emergency call at Montgomery County, and I suffered herniated discs, and I also have other health conditions. I have, I'm a stage 4 9/11 related cancer survivor. So I have a lot of things going on, but it was really hard at first for me when I retired, because I was young. I retired young due to an injury at work. And if I saw something going on in the street, like it's almost instinctual. I felt like I got to do something. And you got to tell yourself, step back, because that's it. Listen, at the end of the day, everyone has an expiration date, right? Like pro athletes, lawyers, doctors, plumbers, it doesn't matter. Pizza man, cops, we all have to put it to bed and find something else to do. And that's where I think some hobbies, some, things that are important to you, that you really enjoy, that you can really get into, I think that's really important.
I want to go to your career really quickly in Baltimore. So you were involved in a couple really bad incidents. One involved a partner of yours that wound up getting stabbed in the eye. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that was so crazy. I think, it was such a long time ago, but if I remember exactly correct, it was right off the jump, right out of roll call, I believe. And you just hear chaos on the radio. And to make a long story short, I respond. I think I was like the second or third, I'm not sure, officer. Because in Baltimore, 99% of the time, one officer vehicle per vehicle. Some places like New York, California, they do too. But you're on your own in Baltimore, So I respond, and chaos. They got this. We got this guy on the ground. We're chasing this guy. We get him on the ground. Make a long story short, a guy I worked with, nice guy, went to, I think it was a peeping Tom call, suspicious, and he's checking him for warrants. He's not really paying attention, I guess, because it's not really, that dire of a situation. He's going to let the guy go. And the kid, he's a kid really, I think he was 16 or 17, reaches into his pocket and over his shoulder stabs my partner in the eye. I call him my partner because he was like the next beat over,
right?
I think that night. And thank God for him. My friend, he got stabbed in between his eyeball and his eyebrow.
We're going to take a short break. That's horrific enough. By the way, I got a thing, serious phobia about eyes. This is the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. We're returning our conversation with Thomas Carchidi in a few moments. He's author of A Life in Law Enforcement, a police memoir, The Good, the Bad, and the Corrupt. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Imagine earning an extra $500 to $5,000 a month or more from the comfort of your home or business, all with Facebook. That's right. Meta is paying people just like you every month. Learn how to create another revenue stream from Meta and dramatically increase your reach, all without breaking your own time bank. Sign up for a free membership at letbreak.com. letbreak.com. That's letbreak.com.
What is the Newsbreak app, and why should you follow the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and podcast on the Newsbreak app? Newsbreak is your #1 local news app for current events, free live news for you and your community. Download the Newsbreak app today for free, and be sure to follow the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and podcast on the Newsbreak app. Return conversation with Thomas Carchidi. He is a retired Montgomery County, Maryland police officer, did some duty in the Baltimore City Police Department like I did. He's from New York. He's author of the book, A Life in Law Enforcement, a police memoir, The Good, the Bad, and the Corrupt. And he also has cancer from 9/11, which we'll talk about a little bit later on in the show. I want to go back to your conversation about being a police officer in Baltimore and going to back up your partner, and he wound up being stabbed in the eye. And one of the things you said was, and I'm paraphrasing, there's nothing in there that is probably let the guy go. There's no indicators. I would get alarm bells in my head. Certain things you go through, your street sense would tell you this is not good, this is going to be bad, it could end in violence, whatever it's going to be. And there's certain calls, like traffic stops, for example, you're like, it's just a routine traffic call, traffic stop, which we know there's no such thing. There was no indicator for him or her that things could turn south, was there?
There wasn't, but like you said, guys like us, when I say guys, general term, law enforcement officers, a lot of times they get like this spider sense, and I guess he just didn't feel it with this guy. He was about to let him go. He stabbed him in the soft portion of the eye below the eyebrow with just an ordinary, common dinner steak knife, probably 6-inch knife, whatever. And thank God the guy was, my partner was okay because he didn't hit the eyeball, but it was a horrible scene. We didn't know what the heck was going on, and he had to fight back. He shot probably 3 or 4 times, and I think he actually hit the suspect, the perp, twice. And to make the story even crazier, I had to, at the end of that, I obviously we called for a bus. We got him medical treatment, both people, the police officer and the suspect. But I had to sit with the perp in the hospital, which was very difficult, because he just stabbed my partner. And, that could be a little tumultuous sitting there with this kid all night.
I did. By the way, there's 2 things I hated about policing. I tell people all the time. Directing traffic at fire scenes and stuff like that, was brutal. I hate it. And the other one was hospital details.
I hated it.
I hated hospital details. We'll be there to relieve you in 4 hours. They'd never show up on time. And it's just so boring. But when you have someone there, you've got that this did harm to someone else, one of your partners, you have to almost disconnect emotionally from that person. Say, I've got a job to do. I'm going to do my job, and I'm not even going to talk to this guy.
Yeah, 100%. And, I'm talking fast because I know time is limited. I did want to mention to you something that is kind of dear to me. A lot of people would say that's such a strange place and have no interest in it. But the block, you were acting lieutenant. You were sergeant acting lieutenant on the block. I was, a lot of nights, I was 1 Adam 11. So I don't have to tell you what that is.
No, that's the Central District. That was the block area. And the reason I went there as lieutenant, when I was a sergeant acting as lieutenant, when the lieutenant be off, they'd rotate around different sergeants. That was in your purview. That was an area you had to be paid. But reason why you went in there is you want to make sure that the cops, and I don't mean this in a bad way, would not do things that would harm their career.
Right.
That's the main thing. And you wanted people to say, no, I'm not here for soda. No, I don't want a lap dance. I just want to make sure you're okay. and I'm okay, and then you go on about your business. That's what we did.
You know, Mr. Wiley, I don't know if when you were there, if they had built the power plant around the block yet on Market
They did.
Place.
The power plant was right before I retired.
Okay, so that became part of 1 Adam 11. So you had this big beat to walk. You walked basically, if people don't know, the block is basically similar to like Times Square was. You know, strip clubs, prostitution, drugs, guns everywhere. It was like New York in the 70s, but only it still exists in Baltimore.
Right.
And then around the block, it was such a weird world. You had that element there, and right around the block, you had, you know, all the county folk, all the upper end people, the college kids coming and partying at the clubs, at the bars, the restaurants. So I call myself a kid. I was an adult, but I was 26, 27 years old. That was an amazing experience, you know, just the nightlife and having fun, being on the harbor, watching the fireworks explode on New Year's Eve. It was a good time, very good time, good memories.
I have a question that one poses a question. I remember I was in operations in Northwest District, so we got sent down to the Inner Harbor, 4th of July, New Year's Eve, all that stuff. And the very few things they told you, number one is don't go between the crowd and the water. They'll push you in the water. And be really, make sure you're going to take action, but you ignore a lot of things. One of the things, and in the wintertime, it was so cold. And then I wound up one day being a DJ in Key West, Florida, and I remember walking the beat in the Inner Harbor on New Year's Eve going, if you'd told me then what I'd be doing now, there's no way I believe you. This is just not possible.
Oh my gosh, so funny. What about Pimlico? Did you ever work?
I worked Pimlico. I worked Preakness. I worked all that stuff. I hated
100,000 crazy kids.
Oh,
on the floor.
We can tell stories. I want to tell people this one. We get calls, stolen car calls. Oh, Preakness. Did you pay someone to park your car on their street in front of their house? Guess what? It's not their house, and the house owner towed their car.
Yeah.
Or they come with their shopping carts full of gear and alcohol, and they just leave it in the middle of the street, and they're wandering around. It was never ending.
I've never seen, like I said, I'm pretty much, you know, a suburb city guy. I've seen a lot. I've never seen a party. When I say a party, a venue like that. No, I've never seen a concert like that. I've never even seen a rave in the city, a club. There were so many college kids on the floor of that racetrack. It was bananas what was going on in that place.
I tell people all the time, if you want to experience, I don't know how to describe it. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just different. If you want to experience something different, go to Preakness and be a police there. And guess what? You'll find out very quickly just how big the world is and how small and insignificant you really are.
Exactly, 100%.
So you left Baltimore City, and I gotta say this. I'm not saying it's an insult. You left Baltimore City and we think, man, there was a time I was like, I would do anything. I went to PG County and I talked to them, Prince George's County, and I almost went to their department. I talked to Vermont State Police, and what stopped me from going there was I'd lose my seniority, my time, and I have to go to the academy. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. It'd be plus we'd be bored to tears. And you think, man, there's places like Hartford County, Howard County, and Montgomery County where you strike the lotto. You must have thought I had gone from the frying pan to the best. This is one of the wealthiest counties in the United States. One of the best situations possible when you went to Montgomery County Police Department, didn't you?
So you're probably going to laugh, but I thought at first I did. And then I thought the exact opposite.
Well, that's what your reality was. When you realize I didn't go for the frying pan, I went into the fire.
I went into the fire. And the truth of the matter is, without getting too much into it, because I don't like to talk negative too much, but it wasn't for me. I went from big city, when I say big city, I mean crime-infested policing, like real policing, to what's the word? Help me out. Give me a word here.
To nonsense details that they take very important, that they make seem like the end of the world.
Nonsensical, backstabbing, top getters. Like, it was crazy. Like, the littlest thing, instead of you're not answering 30 calls a night. You don't have 3 shootings and 2 stabbings. So, okay, make sure you have your traffic tickets, and if your shirt's not tucked in the right way, there's an issue.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
And
it
to be
just
honest
was
with you,
not for
Thomas,
me.
we were just happy you showed up. If you showed up and you were sober and you could do your job and you're somewhat clear-eyed, roll call, you were good to go.
Right, 100%. And totally different life. And I actually was going back to Baltimore. I was in touch with my recruiters. I had enough of it.
And you're not alone. A lot of people leave and a lot of people come back. We're talking with Thomas Carchidi. He is a retired Montgomery County, Maryland police officer and author of the book, A Life in Law Enforcement, a police memoir, the good, the bad, and the corrupt. When you return, we're going to talk about the book, His Life After. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. There's a couple ways you can stay in touch and keep informed of what's going on with the Law Enforcement Talk radio show. Number one, go to our website, letradio.com. Sign up for our email newsletter. It's real easy to find. I promise we don't spam you. I send out about one email every 2 weeks or so. And there's also a feature called Broadcast Channels on our Facebook page, where we send messages directly to your inbox, directly to your messenger. Real easy to sign up for. Make sure you like or follow the Law Enforcement Talk radio show Facebook page. And up top, you'll see broadcast channels, one for free podcast versions of the radio show, another one top post of the day. So you too can stay informed quickly, easily, and best of all, like always, free. Return our conversation with Thomas Carchidi on the Law Enforcement Talk radio show. Thomas is a retired Montgomery, Maryland police officer, and he was in Baltimore City Police Department before that. He's from New York originally. He's the author of the book, and he's, by the way, he's in Long Island, New York now, or the Long Island, as they say. He's author of the book, A Life in Law Enforcement. Life in Law Enforcement, a police memoir, the good, the bad, and the corrupt. By the way, I would say this, Thomas, when my grandparents, they immigrated from Ireland, and their families came with them, like the late 1920s, and they settled in New York, Northern Jersey, Long Island, Westchester County. So I'm very familiar. We were a Navy family. We didn't stay in the area, but we went back to visit quite often. And I remember the days where in the 70s and early 80s, you didn't go to Times Square and you didn't ride a subway. And it was unheard of. You didn't do that unless you wanted really bad things to happen. And I sometimes worry and suspect that we're going back to those days.
Yeah, I do feel the same way. I'm just hoping, not to get into politics, that things are going to change now with the new election.
I hope so. Because if it changes, it gets worse. And a lot of people suffered. And I'll say, we won't beat that horse to death. I want to talk about your story. So you went to Montgomery County, Maryland Police Department. You decided it really wasn't for you, and you were trying to get back to Baltimore City, but something happened.
Yeah, so it really wasn't for me, listen, some people love it, some people hate it. I was indifferent. It really wasn't for me. I was going to go back to Baltimore, and I wound up getting to a car accident at work, and I had a significant neck injury. So at that point, I knew I had to stay over there because it's it could be a career-ending injury, which it was. And that's it. That was the end of Baltimore for me, and I wasn't going back. I wasn't transferring. And that's how it worked out for me. But yeah, I was going to go back, definitely.
How bad was the injury? And are you still feeling the effects of it today?
Oh, every day. I have herniated discs. I have spondylosis, discogenic disease, all kind of nonsense. Got into a car accident. In a snowstorm, going to an emergency call, a snowplow backed into me and into the patrol vehicle. Unmarked, and it's horrible. Herniated discs are, depending on the injury, the spinal compression. So I feel like every day I have pain. Just depends on which level of pain. I feel like someone stabbed me in the neck with an ice pick, but sometimes it gets so bad that I have to take a ton of Advil, and because I don't like to take doctor prescribed narcotics or anything like that.
You can't. After a while, you become addicted to it. You can't.
Yeah, I don't take that stuff, so I just take Advil, which isn't really good for your body either. But I got to take something, and I just try to relax.
For what it's worth, I wanted to tell you this. My wife, Stephanie, I call her the boss. She took a really bad fall in a major retailer, and she wound up having to have surgery on her spine and also on her neck. In the neck, they go through the front of your neck, and they go through the Adam's apple area to one side of it. And they did fusion of 3 vertebrae in her neck, and fusion of two in her lower back. And back in the day, back when I was a youngster, that was a death sentence. Your life was over. Nowadays, it's not that way. I don't know if you've considered that. They talked about it with you or not.
They've talked about that since day one of the injury. Some of the best hospitals in the country. And I decided to hold off because the problem with that is for everybody I speak to, one person says, best thing I ever did. The next person says, the worst thing I ever did. Yeah.
She would tell you it's probably the best thing she did.
Okay, well, thank God she lucked out, Yeah. But I
Here's
just
the negative.
Take that chance.
And a lot of people know this. I live in Florida. The reason why is I have multiple steel plates in my right hand, and I'm right-handed.
Okay.
When that steel plate gets cold, my bones get cold, and so I don't do well with the cold. She does not do well with the steel anymore in a winter environment, up north. She doesn't. She's got to be down south where it's warmer. And hopefully we'll get you down here as well. So your career, at 31, your career is basically over because of this car accident that you didn't plan.
Basically. The good thing about it is my collective bargaining agreement, police contract in Montgomery, basically allowed me to do whatever I wanted as long as I didn't work as a governmental police officer again. So I had the opportunity, like now, to go back to law school. I had the opportunity to work if I was healthy. I had the opportunity to go work for Seagate Police Department, which is a private entity that employs New York State peace officers. I was a firearms instructor for them, a general topics instructor, a sergeant, admin guy over there, and it's kind of like a little village police department,
right? But
only instead of getting paid by a government municipality or town, you get paid by a board that run the place. It's very unique. They've been around since I think they've been around since before NYPD, since 1899.
I've never heard of them.
Seagate Police Department. Yeah, Seagate Police Department in Brooklyn. It's interesting. Look it up. So I worked there. I was associated with them for over a decade, and a lot of craziness. I was there during Hurricane Sandy, which was absolutely nuts. Hurricane Sandy, that the whole eastern shore of Long Island, which Brooklyn is on the western end, southwestern end of Long Island, the whole thing was decimated. Like it was crazy what went on over there. Houses in the ocean, cars swept away. Yeah, that was some.
And I would
crazy
safe to say that people in New York were not expecting this. They're not prepared for that.
They said it's going to be a superstorm. It's going to be a terror, but I don't know. People from New York, we blow things off. Yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah. We didn't think it was going to be like that.
You get down here in Florida when they talk about major hurricanes, it gets your attention. We know all about that stuff.
Yeah. No, Florida has it bad, but it was getting to the point where the water was rising up past people's up to the first level of their house, and like we had nowhere to go. We had to get, the guys. We all had to go and pile up on one of the board members, a good friend of mine, one of her houses, because she was at the highest point in the middle of Seagate and Coney Island, and we just had to wait it out for the water to start going down.
So, are you out of law enforcement now, totally?
I'm done. Yeah, I was, like I said, I was diagnosed with cancer about 2 years ago, and that's it. I've been, I had a long, rough 2-year battle, torturous. I had stage 4 lymphoma cancer. I had a tumor in my lymph node in my neck, and then it spread to my back, my T5 vertebrae. So you forget it, what I went through, spinal taps, bone punctures, radiation, chemo, 23 days in the hospital, this new treatment called CAR T-cell therapy. It was brutal, but thank the Lord I made it through. I'm on the other side, and I'm in full remission. So then
you wrote a book, or I want to say then. What possessed you to write this book, A Life in Law Enforcement, a police memoir, the good, the bad, and the corrupt?
I'm sitting home one night with my ex, and I'm just like, I have so many stories to tell, so many memories, and I said, I just want to start putting this stuff down for myself, just to go back and look at someday, family can look at it. And then next thing you know, I have 450 pages written, 450 pages, and I'm trying to cut material out because it's too much information, and it's amazing. It literally, not just because I wrote it, but there's so much interesting information in this book, And it's the real deal. Like, you did the job, right? 99% of the people didn't do the job, and they don't really get it. They see what's on television, on Hollywood and the movies, but they don't really understand. When you read this book, not guys like me and you, but the average person, the layman that was never working in law enforcement, their mouth is going to drop. It's going to drop from the things we see, the things we experience, the good, the bad, the corrupt. It's unbelievable what goes on, especially in cities like Baltimore.
All right. Well, don't even get me started on that. I get my blood pressure gets elevated when we talk just about the funding for like areas like Sandtown, Winchester, and all that stuff. And where'd it go?
Right.
People still live. There's a worse school system, high crime. They're demolishing houses left and right, horrible services, and yet they get no break from this at all. Can people find the book online?
So my book is literally everywhere. You could just Google my name, Thomas Carchidi, Google A Life in Law Enforcement, a police memoir, The Good, the Bad, the Corrupt. It's on Amazon. It's all over the internet. It's on literally, it's all over. Book Baby was my self-publishing company. You can purchase it there. So you literally can find it anywhere if you just Google the name.
Well, thank you for your time, and the walk down memory lane has been well worth it. Thanks for your service, and I appreciate you telling the story on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show.
Thank you, sir, Mr. Wiley. It was my pleasure.
I'd like to thank our guests for coming on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. The Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show is a nationally syndicated weekly radio show broadcast on numerous AM and FM radio stations across the country. We're always adding more affiliate stations. If you enjoyed the podcast version of the show, which is always free, please do me a favor and tell a friend or two or three. I'll be back in just a few days with another episode of the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and Podcast. Until then, this is John J. Wiley. See ya.